the process could take up to 6 months because in order to integrate your data, we actually need to upgrade a version of the software and put out a new installer. So 6 months is kind of the worst case scenario. However, it depends on when your submission is. So if you submit your data very near to the end of that 6-month period, then we will likely process it as soon as possible, and you will see that data sooner than later in the next version of iTree. So it's really when a new version of iTree Eco gets put out. So there are, as I said, the 4 elements. I'll start with species because that's the simplest. So you maybe are looking at doing your tree inventory and you have noticed that some of the species you have are maybe unique or rare. We have a list of almost 7,000 tree species. So we usually try to cover most every species. Hybrids and cultivars, there are so many of them that we try to avoid. We do add them to the database, especially when they're kind of unique in terms of their structure or their function, but typically they can be covered under that standard species. So if I'm in iTree database, I might want to view the database to see what species are in there. So I hit View Database up at the top, and then I can do a search. So I can search on scientific name or common name. In this case, I did find a species we don't have, Acer caudifolium. So I'm going to type Acer in here and go. And this is our list of our current species that have a genus of Acer. As you can see, it's quite extensive. It has all the associated information in there. So you might look at this and say, oh, Acer campestre. Well, that's not short-lived. That's actually very long-lived. So you can send us, if you find that any of the data in here is erroneous, we encourage your feedback in that respect. But I do not see Acer caudifolium, so I am going to add that to the database. So I go add to database, select species, and here we're asking for your contact information. This is mainly so that if there are issues with the data you submit or we have questions from you, then we have a way of contacting you. So I'm going to and then your affiliation, if you'd like to, you're welcome to tell us what your affiliation is. So we'll hit proceed, and this brings us to our species addition location. So in here, I can select my genus, and in this case, it's Acer. As a note, if you were to go through this dropdown and you had maybe a very rare genera that you wanted to add, you might not see that in the database. So you have the option of selecting Add Genus and entering whatever genus you have. You can save that. You can also, if you had a unique family order, you can also add those as well if you don't see those in the dropdown. For this example, we'll add an Acer. And just as an example, if you tried to add a species that's already in the database, it's not going to allow you. So it's already saying the species is already present in the database. So Acer caudifolium, and it automatically tells you what family, order, and class is in there, and that is locked because obviously that's what Acer belongs to. For a common name, it defaults to the species name, which is fine, but if you know the common name, you are welcome to add it in there. So I will add that. And then some of these fields down here are required and others are optional. I strongly encourage any user to try to fill in even the optional data because the structure and function of the species is going to inform the model. So if we have any extra information your results are going to be that much more correct, robust. So in this case, it's growth form. And just as a note, these question marks are all hoverovers, so they explain in greater detail what each of these parameters are. So in this case, it's a growth form, it's a tree, % leaf type, that's referring to the leaf density. So this is a hardwood, leaf type is deciduous, And then these optional parameters tell you about the habit of the tree. So growth rate, it's moderate growing, it is long lived, and then the height at maturity. So the average height at maturity for the species, I'll say 35. And then you can tell us what continent this may be native to. So this is native to Asia. And that is all we require for you to enter a new species into the database. So you select submit, and then it double checks, do you want to submit the data? And you say okay. And at that point, the data will come to me. I will verify it to the best of my knowledge, and then load it into our database. So the next time a new version of iTree Eco is there and you're doing your inventory, you will be able to submit Acer cuttidifolium as an example. So if you wanted to add multiple species, you could select this button to submit another form and continue to add your species. So that is the species portion of it. It's pretty straightforward, and I think is a really good way for people to add to our database for their own, running their own data sets.